Hello, I am Brian Egan, partner at KPMG in Ireland. Welcome to Business and Finance's Executive Insight Series, where we speak to business leaders about their insights into strategy, success, and overcoming challenges. Today, I am joined by Cathal Friel, the entrepreneurial force behind hVIVO, Poolbeg Pharma, and European Green Transition. Join us as we delve into Cathal's strategic expertise and methods for building successful businesses. Cathal, you're very welcome.
Brian, thank you very much for having me today.
You're very welcome indeed. And you were chosen as Business and Finance's Business Person of the Year in December 2023, really off the back of success you've had with hVIVO and your other businesses. As you've grown businesses, you've really shown a real interest and real passion for listing companies on the public markets. Why has that been your approach to date?
Yeah, good point, Brian. I always wonder sometimes why do I do it. At times I'm a bit like a hamster in a wheel. Public markets are hard going, but it's a bit like your own business, KPMG. You have different specialism. You've got your transaction services, your tax advice, your audit. I've decided I'm originally corporate finance in one of my previous careers, and I just found this niche that I really liked and loved. And part of this, there's not a lot of other people do it. Once you've done one IPO, it's a terrible thing, my wife will kill me for saying this, it's like having a child. The second one's easier, the third one's easier, the fourth one, so I'm on number 5. And each do, one helps the other. But the really exciting bit about it is actually really nice putting something together very small, like Amrit. It was tiny, it was basically a colleague went into the company's office and paid €1, got set it up. 6 years later, Casey paid in the monster sum of money. Now, I don't ever get that much, I get scrunched down, but some people make a lot of money and investors do really well. And it was actually really nice bringing a company from a thought in our offices in Fitzwilliam Square to 1.5 billion and about 600 staff were employed. So it was cool.
It's brilliant. It's a great story. And even more recently with your more recent endeavours with EGT and hVIVO, starting small but plans to scale big.
Yeah, look, that's the critical one. I think you and I spoke earlier when I sat down before we went right, like what's unique about small cap. Look, first of all, small cap, if you do it properly, they should double, triple, quadruple. Like there's lots of angst in Ireland about Kingspan leaving the average market, going to the States. But that's the inevitable part. The Kingspan I invested in 1987 and it's 100x has gone up. People forget it was a tiny. Day one when Jean Murtagh presented to myself and a bunch of people in the Four Seasons Hotel in Monaghan, that's the other Four Seasons, not the real one, it's still there. And he was making blow plastic heating tanks for diesel oil. That was really cool then, because the traditional diesel oil tank was steel and it rusted. That was all. He became the world leader. If he hadn't IPO'd, he could never have grown.
Indeed, no, it's remarkable. And when you take life sciences, pharmaceuticals into green economy and energy, what do you think of, or how do you approach from a sectoral perspective? Or do you consider your investment and where you want to build on a company by company basis, or do you look at focus sectors?
Again, it's a bit like I could throw back to you, where do KPMG pick their sectors, being honest with you? And it's the same, I don't think KPMG picks sectors. You actually look where money. We do the same, we just follow. Like we started, the first IPO did was an oil and gas one. Then I did an Amrit, which was pharmaceuticals. Then we did a clinical trials company, then more pharmaceutical, and now European Green Transition. I spent most of the time as a child in Donegal. My comic has always been a little pink comic called the Financial Times. And my wife goes bananas. I've now finally got one of our oldest kids occasionally looking at it. It's a comic, but that comic tells me where is money flowing. So I've never, being honest with you, I've never a bright idea in my head, but it's really good to be a fast follower. So at the moment, the world knows there's loads of money going to the green transition in Europe. So we said, yeah, there's money going there. Let's put something together to be in that money flow. That's as simple as where European Green Transition came out of.
That's really interesting, because I think capital flows and that sort of demand side in terms of investors certainly follows different headings, and that can change over time. You still need to bring a good product though, and a good idea, and clearly you've managed to find that with EGT.
Yeah, with European Green Transition, we started out, we said first of all we had some assets. It's not a mining company. Mining means losing money, okay. But it was a good starting point. We had some green metals, lithium, graphite and rare earths. But we've transitioned very quickly into sectors such as recycling of tailings, a copper project in Cyprus, and we've indicated we are going to other areas as we go forward, possibly carbon credit generation. So, but to make clear, people think, oh, where do you come with the great ideas? We don't. We just look, we put the vehicles together, we make it very clear to the market when the vehicle up and running, it will be M&A. And this goes back where I said Kingspan grew on M&A from being a very humble, small, Cavan-based manufacturer of, who would have thought, plastic diesel central heating tanks. Now the world leader in insulation of buildings.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And from a more macro perspective, you spend a lot of time in the UK, spend a lot of time here meeting and interacting with business leaders, with politicians, and really getting a good sense of where the country is. How do you see the economic outlook for Ireland now, and what opportunities or challenges do you see out there?
Oh, I've never been more optimistic in Ireland. I started work, unfortunately or fortunately, as a 16-year-old in Donegal. My father had the business, he overexpanded in 79, 80, property. There was a burst. So I'd leave school, he got sick, and I'd run the family business. So I've been working since November 81. No, the 80s were tough, non-pleasant. The biggest problems in the 80s throughout the whole country was, one, could you get a job? Two, most people, could you get enough work to pay for food for your family? And three, just to try and survive. Today, the biggest problem in the country is very clearly housing. But I would say now, this is not meant to be facetious, that's a first world problem. There's nobody worrying about getting a job. The country has negative unemployment. So I actually think Ireland, and it goes back to the little story, in 2017 I happened to be in San Francisco with another firm, and by fluke and luck I ended up being invited to meet the CFO in Apple, in Cupertino. This person was doing some work with me. He said, oh, this is my friend Cathal Friel. For some reason we said, either he said or I said something about Brexit. He said, oh, Cathal Friel. And this is the same, say, you should hug Boris Johnson. I said, what? He said, he has transformed Ireland. And this is my view. And he said, 5,000 people in Cork, Apple. If there was no Brexit, we were probably most of our expansion going to the big country next door that speaks English, is the UK. However, the most important thing in all our expansion is political stability. I said, what about the nice young English-speaking population in Ireland? You've got them in England, 76 million there. There's only 4 or 5 million in the EU. And he said, with common consolidated tax base, there was inevitability before Brexit that a lot of the multinationals would have left Ireland. It was the absolute inevitability. He was saying, Apple, there's hundreds of flights to the west coast of the States, more into Heathrow than Dublin. There's a train track and you can drive a car to Europe. But he said, wow, you're so lucky. So anyway, to answer your question, take what he said. Apple has since been piling in more jobs to Cork since Boris Johnson triggered Brexit and caused it. So to answer your question, I think, yeah, Ireland's in the Goldilocks for the first time in my life, I think. And I'm working 43 years, 4 years this November. You can say, wow, the next 5, 10 years. And the reason being is that multinationals, it's going to be America first, there's blocks. It's going to be Europe first, and then the Asian blocks. So to trade in Europe, you're going to need to have a presence. There's loads more FDI going into Europe.
I think that's right, and we'd see a huge amount of positivity amongst our client base and ourselves across, really across all sectors in the country at the moment. But I think that it does need to be managed in the right sort of way and get that support. When you look to scaling businesses, and clearly, there's fairly full government coffers and there's various sort of incentives available. Do you think we do enough to encourage scaling businesses and to support them?
Yeah, I've a rule in my life. I've never claimed a government grant. I have lots of friends in Belfast that go there quite often, and the first thing, is there a grant, is there a grant? Whereas in the south has gone away. So I actually think the Irish government does a really good job just getting out of the way, let industry, let nature take its course. The economy is going to be very FDI focused, that's like it or lump it. They provide high skilled jobs, high paid jobs. But I think where the government is missing a trick, if you think about it, and it goes back to my small cap mantra, like I've done a bunch of them, Kingspan, Ryanair, CRH, Paddy Power, some of the biggest, Kerry Group, Glanbia, were all small cap public companies that became very big. The government does need to think about what it's doing. Small cap IPOs is over in Ireland. It's closed. Even the CEO of Peel Hunt in London recently said, yeah, Dublin IPO market is, he used the word quite dead. So I think where the government probably needs to think about, do they want us all working for multinationals? That's not the end of the world, but I think the government has to focus on how do you get that small cap IPO market open again, because it is absolutely dead. Like I've done 5 IPOs. The first 3, Fastnet, Amrit and hVIVO, were in London and Dublin. The latest two, Poolbag and European Green, we've solely listed in London. Poolbag Pharma, we've got Luke O'Neill on board. We went straight to London with that. It's gone really successful for the reason being is it's really not possible to list a company in Ireland the last 2 or 3 years. It's just too difficult. There's a whole host of reasons, but yeah, there's no IPOs out of Ireland at the moment.
And I think it's certainly close to my heart, and we'd like to see more of that as well. And I think that whether it's making the markets more accessible to retail investors, or whether it's slightly better tax incentives for founders exiting, I think that there's ways to potentially open that door again. Because I think you're right that sort of foundation for Irish businesses to grow, it's a phenomenal opportunity, and we've seen success stories right throughout the years. But as you said, it's been harder for a number of years. When you dial back to your own stable of companies or portfolio, what's going to drive that growth? So we talk, I think 100x is a lofty target, but what's next for Poolbag, for hVIVO, in terms of really driving out that growth potential?
Yeah, it's again, both of them, the two, I've always got two children that needs to be growing up, and the children at the moment, hVIVO is up and steady and behaving itself like a young adult. It's paying a dividend, so it's a bit like, they're actually like kids. hVIVO has now left university and it's making an income because it's paying as a dividend, paying everybody, so it's a really cool company. Bear in mind that was sub 10 million market cap 5 years ago. Poolbag is growing and growing very fast. I say we got Luke O'Neill on board, he's very well recognised here. We've guided the market, Poolbag will go on NASDAQ later this year, so that will really get some life into it. We've got the old Amlet team in there. So that's where Poolbag is going, is putting the band back together again. I helped put the band together. Reinvention and reusing the same one. European Green. So growth, our feeling is pharma will continue growing. Like the pandemic was cruel and hard, but it's meant there's a lot of money going into it. And the green transition. So I think out of Ireland, to share ideas, I think pharmaceuticals are going to completely grow. It's a great space to be playing and doing startups or working for the multinationals. And the whole green transition, Ireland's brilliantly positioned to be involved in that. If you think about it, I heard a stat. The greatest wind resource in the world is off the west coast of Antarctica, which is a bit far away. The second best wind resource, this is for wind turbines, is the west coast of Scotland. Sorry, that was the third one. Where's the second best wind resource in the world? The west coast of Ireland. Just look at this week, we're now with that Rosslare issued a contract for 200 million to build out Rosslare Harbour for the big wind turbines, because it's very clear Ireland, roll the clock forward 10 years, who would have thought we would be an energy exporter? But again, like America, who would have thought 10 years ago America would be the biggest exporter of oil and gas? Things change.
Yeah, I think that strategic vision and getting the right interconnectors in place and being able to have the infrastructure that'll then attract capital is a critical part of it. And I think you're right, it is on all of us to do that.
Yeah, and I think going back, like we all beat up the government. I have a rule, leave the government alone, and the government should leave us all alone. The government's done a pretty good job. Hopefully, offshore energy is going to be a huge growth sector, so loads of people can find how to make a piece in that. Pharmaceuticals is a great sector, financial services. And I think if you think the whole transactional accountancy services, I think where Ireland's sitting as well for KPMG and people, this is going to be a great place to be positioned, English speaking, serving the big European market.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we've spoken about various parts of your career there over 40 years and a huge success. I'm sure there's been some challenges. And as you've kind of dealt with that adversity over the last number of years, how do you manage it, or how do you keep going? What sort of tips or tricks do you have for people watching today?
I would say drink lots of coffee. No, I'm being naughty. Actually, it was very simple. Every morning, including this morning, I head down the pier in Dunleary, 5:30, 6 o'clock. The neighbours think there's something wrong with me. So, are you depressed or something? I said, no, I love going my walk. I listen to music for an hour and a half. It means I come home fresh. But no, I think anybody, if you're busy, look, I said, running public companies, you're like a hamster in a wheel. It is busy because you're focused on people put their hard-earned cash into your shares. I'm always promoting shares, that's my job as a promoter. I warn people they should, if you double, share price doubles, take some money off the table, triple, do it again, don't be greedy and spread it around. But that means it keeps me very busy.
No, absolutely, yeah, there's no retirement on the horizon anyway from the sounds of things.
Again, I'm even planning that, okay, I'm turning 60, I just think 4 days a week sounds like great, have 3 days off. But look, bear in mind, there's people in jobs. If you're in a job, you hate your job, it's hard, absolutely get the hell out of it. But if your job doesn't feel like work, and it is actually, and I've always conscious, when I grew up in Donegal, 2 local bank managers. We had a retail business. The view was, I remember reading stats, the bank manager always retired at early 60, and inevitably always died before he got 70. And that was because he went from an intensive job to nothing. I think the modern economy, everybody would be dabbling into their 60s and 70s. And that's my view, is that, yeah, 2 or 3 days a week in my 70s, sure, what's wrong with that? I'll get bored otherwise. And I think most people are the same.
No, I think you're right. I think there'll be plenty to do and plenty of demand for your services, I'm sure. Cathal, thank you very much for joining us today. Really interesting discussion, and we would wish you many more years to come over that period. And thank you for listening. You can find more episodes of Business and Finance's Executive Insight series in association with KPMG at businessandfinance.com or on YouTube and Spotify.